Jewish Education in Media is pleased to present L'Chaim, a program that highlights the people, issues, and events of importance to the Jewish community. Now here is your host, Rabbi Mark Golub.
In a different way. Throughout your life, you have become somebody who is very passionate about the state of Israel and concerned about Jewish issues. It didn't start, though, when you were a young person, correct?
Not especially.
Okay. Do you trace it at all back to the Buchenwald experience as you now look at who you are and what you care about?
Absolutely.
Explain how.
It solidified my mind to the effect that I didn't want to see anything remotely resembling that again, and I would fight to the best of my ability to prevent something like that from happening. And that's one of the reasons that I feel that I'm so involved in trying to protect Israel today.
Mm-hmm. What's the worst enemy confronting Israel today? What threatens Israel today?
I would say that Iran, from a country point of view, is the biggest threat. But I feel that there are not enough Jews who comprehend the potential threat. I argue continuously with people, and I find it very difficult to change people's minds, and I present logic that is really, really heavy.
Irrefutable.
Facts. And the word hope always seems to come up. They say, you gotta hope. I say, hope is a wonderful word, but you should have something to back up, some little bit of potential that's going to coincide with hope. And I see no hope emanating from the Palestinian leadership. I see the opposite. And I show factually how a lot of the Jews do not understand the significance of what the Palestinian leadership has done from the day that Israel declared itself a state.
Give me an example or two of what you feel the major misunderstandings or ignorances are that plague the American people.
The biggest problem is the fact that people do not understand that we're dealing with a different civilization, a different understanding of life and death, and a complete failure to comprehend that something that makes us sad makes them happy, and vice versa. For example, 9/11, there were Palestinians jumping with joy. They were getting candy. I give the illustration that when the major Goldstein, I think, the one who
Goldstone.
He went into a mosque and killed.
Oh, Bernard Goldstein, yeah.
I was in mourning. The people in Israel were 99.9% were enormously disturbed by this. If Israelis are killed, as these three poor young fellows, they're happy. They're happy that it was done. The mothers, when they hear that a child of theirs became a suicide bomber and blew himself up in a cafe, they were proud. Now that does not make sense. So when I talked to friends of mine, I said, look, you cannot think in terms of making a deal with someone who doesn't adhere to keeping deals. And I try to illustrate to the best of my ability that in order to have any kind of a peace agreement that means anything, there has to be an intention of the parties to really mean peace. If one signs a document and one goes down to South Africa, as Arafat did, and immediately after signing Oslo 1 or 2, I don't remember which it was, he gets up in the largest mosque and says, I don't like Oslo any more than you do. But remember Muhammad and the Quraysh tribe. Now, I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's in the nature of a Baba Misa, but it's not a Baba Misa, in that they refer to this as proper thinking, proper procedure, in that he tried to convert, Muhammad tried to convert the Quraysh tribe, and they said, no, thank you. And they were too strong at that time, so he entered into a 10-year peace treaty with them. In less than 2 years, he got strong enough, and on a whim or caprice, he went in there and destroyed that whole tribe. Now, when Arafat makes a statement referring to that, there are many Muslims who understand that little story, and they understand that here Israel entered into a peace agreement in Oslo, and here Arafat saying, well, it's a peace agreement, but, and getting people to comprehend that is not easy. Mm-hmm. But I have changed many minds. Mm-hmm. And I will continue to try to change minds and to show them with facts, not opinion. And when I come out and talk to groups, I present Palestinian documents. Mm-hmm. I don't just say, this is my opinion. Mm-hmm. I say, here it is right before you.
What are some of the important documents that you want to make sure Americans and American Jews see and understand?
I would like every American, no matter what the religion, to read the PLO Charter of 1964 when the PLO was created.
Now,
what is PLO? What is PLO?
The PLO was created in 1964. Explain the significance of that.
The significance of 64 is that Israel was within her 67 borders in 64, and today, when people talk about going back to 67, I ask, show me one fact which would indicate that there has been a change in the mindset of the Palestinian leadership. One fact, and nobody can do it.
Change in what area?
Pardon me?
Change in what area?
In the area of wanting to destroy Israel.
Yes. The point is, if the PLO was created in 1964, before Israel came into control of the West Bank and Gaza, whatever they wanted to liberate had nothing to do with the West Bank.
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, in the 1964 Charter, they had Clause 24, and I make everybody read that clause when I'm talking. That clause specifically precludes Jordan's control of the West Bank and Egypt's control of Gaza from their liberation.
Yes, I'm going to read that for our audience. This organization, this is from the Palestinian Charter of 1964. Again, it is so significant, as Bill points out, that the PLO was created before Israel was in control of the West Bank or Gaza, and the PLO has a Palestine National Charter written in 1964. Article 24 reads, "The organization does not exercise any territorial sovereignty over the West Bank, in the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, on the Gaza Strip, or in the Hima area. Its activities will be on the national popular level in the liberational, organizational, political, and financial fields." It is so significant that what they're saying is we are excluding any desire for the West Bank or Gaza
Absolutely.
as part of the PLO charter.
I point that out to people, and their eyes pop out. They never realize that. And to me, that is extraordinarily significant.
Mm-hmm. What do you feel the aim is, not simply of the Hamas terrorist group, but of the mainstream Palestinian Authority and Fatah and Mahmoud Abbas?
I'm glad you stated it the way you did, because I try to avoid conversation pertaining to Hamas, because that is so obvious that it doesn't warrant my spending time for. I show people that they do not, the Palestinian leadership does not adhere to what they say they're going to do. And I illustrate Oslo, and I'll show you exactly how. It all began in 1993 when Arafat was in the process of just about ready to sign Oslo I. It was known as the DOP.
DOP means what?
Declaration of Principles. And meanwhile, Israel had never recognized the PLO. The PLO had never recognized Israel. In the negotiations, the secret negotiations that had been going on, they created a letter for Arafat to send to Prime Minister Rabin. And in this letter, Arafat said things that were from the mouths and the writing of an Israeli and an American attorney, because Arafat, I don't think, could ever have written the letter that he signed. In this letter, he said the most magnificent things that Israelis had been dreaming about from the day that they declared a state. We recognize Israel as a state that is entitled to live side by side next to us in peace. And the document that we're going to sign specifically says that. And he came out with all rosy and glorious expressions of peace. And then look at the last sentence of that letter. It innocuously says that I'm going to present this letter to the Palestinian National Council for their formal approval. It goes past everybody with whom I talk until I explain the significance of it. The charter, the amended charter after Israel took over the whole area, Charter Clause 33 says that no changes can take place in this charter unless 2/3 of the members vote for such a change, which means in simple terms that every word of peace emanating from that letter didn't mean a thing unless and until the Palestinian National Council, the PNC, voted to change the charter. And I'm going to show you what I call the daisy chain of chicanery, which they used to fool the world and a lot of Israelis and the United States into thinking that they changed the charter. In Oslo II, Israel was finally beginning to somewhat waken from, this was, the DOP was signed in September of 1993. No specific meeting ever took place by the Palestinian National Council. One would think that if Arafat was going to present this letter for their formal approval, that they'd meet rather quickly. No meeting, no anything, no word mentioned in Oslo I that they had to change the charter. It was just an acceptance of Arafat's letter. Finally, Oslo II was being negotiated, and 2 years later, there was Clause 31, Paragraph 9 inserted, and that clause specifically says that within 2 months from the inauguration of this document, the charter changes had to take place. That was the first time there was ever a writing other than Arafat's letter where they now really had to do something. The inauguration took place on March 7, 1996. So that meant that by May 7th, they had to do some changes in the charter.
The inauguration?
Pardon me?
Which inauguration?
The inauguration of Oslo II.
Okay.
That's known as the interim agreement.
Correct.
Finally, on April 24, 1996, the PNC met. And before they were given a resolution, the chairman of the PNC, his name was Zanoun, delivered an impassioned talk. He said, we have to do something. He was indirectly referring to Clause 31, Paragraph 9. But we're not going to make it easy for the Israelis. By the way, I have an absolute recording of what happened when he delivered the speech. I have a translation of his speech into English. And he went on to say, we're going to work it so that we're going to push it forward maybe 6 months. So sure enough, the resolution was given to the members of the Palestinian National Council. And with a 33-clause charter, there were two skinny little articles of the resolution. And to show you the chicanery, Clause 1 said that we decide that we're going to amend the charter pursuant to the exchange of letters between Arafat and Prime Minister Rabin. That sounds good. Nothing specific, but it sounds good. Take a look at Article 2. It says that we're going to give this to a legal committee to redraft the charter and present it to the Palestinian Central Council. There is not one word in the charter which refers to the Palestinian Central Council, but that's what it said. That's what the resolution says. And they overwhelmingly voted for this. Meanwhile, Israel's waiting and waiting for something to happen. Nothing happens. 6 months later, the Israeli Foreign Ministry comes out with a memo saying that pursuant to 33, they made an error, by the way. They said 33.2 when it was 33, 3 X's and a 2, 3 X's and a 1 is actually where this appeared. And they said, since nothing has happened, we feel that the leaders of the Palestinians still have the same idea of destroying Israel, and that was the October of 1996. Not a word ever came forward to change that until January 1998. In January 1998, there were negotiations going on for what was called the Wye River negotiations. And Netanyahu was now prime minister. This was the first time he was prime minister. And he insisted, and I say foolishly, he insisted to insert a memorandum in the Wye River Agreement to the effect that all the Palestinian ministries were to meet. The heads of all the ministers were going to affirm or reaffirm or affirm Arafat's letter to President Clinton, in which he listed specific clauses which he alleged were annulled and partially annulled by that two skinny little clause resolution. And sure enough, all of the heads of all of the ministries, almost all of them raised their arms and voted, yes, we reaffirm Arafat's letter to President Clinton. Mm-hmm. But what were they reaffirming? They were reaffirming a lie. That never happened. There is no document that could conceivably sustain what Arafat said. Arafat just said what he wanted to say, and it made it look good. And here all these ministers, these heads of ministries raised their arms. Yes, we reaffirm what Arafat said. But the PNC, the Palestinian National Council, never said it. Mm-hmm. And they've never come out with a document after that little skinny resolution of that two-clause resolution. So what was reaffirmed was a lie. Now, I ask anybody to think about that. If there is a lie and people raise their arms and reaffirm that lie, does that convert it into the truth? Mm-hmm. President Clinton thought so. Netanyahu thought so. President Clinton delivered an impassioned speech. And he said, the people in the streets of Israel, thank you for what you have done. You have finally annulled the clauses in your charter calling for Israel's destruction. And it was baloney. It could not be done by a vote reaffirming a lie. Netanyahu, unfortunately, bought it. I guess he saw all these arms going up and President Clinton there, and President Clinton giving this impassioned speech. But I have the documents to show that these were lies. Lies cannot be converted into the truth. No change in the charter has ever come forward. I wrote a letter to President Clinton. President Clinton wrote a letter to the Washington Post and apologized in this letter for having signed the right to marriage law, and he said that he made a grievous error and never should have signed that law. When I saw that, I said, gee, maybe I can get him to admit that he made an error in giving that speech. So I wrote a polite letter commending him for admitting that he made an error, and I said, I'd like you to think about, and I went into a whole rigmarole of what happened. And I said, and I'll make it interesting, I'll give your fund $100,000 if the one person can come forward with a document that would sustain what Arafat said in his letter to you, a document signed and sealed by the Palestinian National Council, and I would give $100,000 to 4 charities, veterans, blinded U.S. vets, blinded Israeli vets, paraplegic U.S. and paraplegic Israeli vets, if anybody can come forward with a document. I never received a response. No one has ever come forward. I've offered money subsequently to anybody, to the first person who would come forward. Nobody has ever shown up, and I'm in the process of augmenting it to $1 million. So to really open a lot of eyes, that somebody to come forward with a document that would coincide with the specific changes in the charter as prescribed in Arafat's letter to President Clinton.
Okay. That was a marvelous, marvelous exposition of the entire way in which we have to understand whether the Palestinian Liberation Organization has ever retracted its stated goal of destroying the state of Israel.
I'll give you an illustration of the way at least one Palestinian leader thinks. He said, you have some nerve asking us to change our charter. Did we ever, or would we ever ask you to change your Bible? Mm-hmm. I've got to tell you one little tidbit that emanated from King Hussein, the late King Hussein of Jordan, in his description of Arafat. And he used this expression many times. He says, Arafat cannot come to a bridge which he would not double cross. That's a Muslim talking about Arafat. Perez has made the statement that he changed Arafat from a terrorist into a man of peace. Can you imagine me taking a position that I would rather hear from King Hussein than from Perez, the former president of Israel and former prime minister?
I want to ask you one more question. As you look at things today, why do you feel so few people either understand what you say, or even if they hear you, they don't want to believe it, and they reject it, and they almost say, it doesn't matter, Bill. What matters is there's a Palestinian entity now that understands its future needs to be a peaceful one alongside of Israel, and that there is now within the Palestinian world a significant movement with a significant leadership that wants to make peace with Israel. What do you say?
I say what I said during the first few minutes of this interview, that they have never shown one fact that would indicate that they've changed their minds or that they intend to change their minds. They have it in their minds that Israel does not belong there, and no matter how long it takes, they are going to get rid of Israel.
And my question is, why don't people see it that way?
The word hope enters their vocabulary. You've got to hope that there's going to be a change.
Because people want peace there.
A person has to be an imbecile if he would want not to have peace. I want peace as much as anybody wants peace. But I want peace where I'll have peace of mind that there is peace, not peace on a piece of paper where they'll refer to Mohammed and the Quraysh tribe, indicating what they think about a piece of paper.
I understand. You're doing fabulous work on behalf of the Jewish people in the state of Israel. You've really done work your entire life.
As long as I can breathe, I am going to fight to the best of my ability, and I keep on talking to groups. I'm going to be debating at Bar-Ilan University this coming fall on this very subject.
With whom?
With a left-leaning professor from Bar-Ilan University.
Well, I wish you kol tuv v'hatzlacha. You are always welcome at this table. Thank you for making time for us. Good for you. Thank you, my friend. Bill Langfan, an amazing individual, a profoundly committed Jew. Again, he was one of those who liberated Buchenwald, but more than that, he's been involved in the fight for the state of Israel virtually his entire life. It's an honor to have him here at this table. As always, I'd love to hear any reactions you have to the things that Bill Langfan had to say. Please email me, write me, post on our Facebook wall, tweet me. I look forward to hearing from you. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. L'chaim, my friends, to life.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support Shalom TV with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double high or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the Shalom TV website homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM. To GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive on DVD with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.
L'chaim is a presentation of Jewish Education in Media.